Hey Jack, it's Dr. Scott. I have some feedback for you on your IRB application. And I think your practice in Writing Center pedagogy paid off because your IRB app looks pretty strong. So I have just a few minor suggestions. Some of them I definitely think you should implement. Others I think are a little bit more up to your discretion. So let me go through and kind of talk through my feedback. You got your questions here at the end. I do think your recruitment strategy, it might be one that you need to think through a little bit more. I mean, what happens if participants don't show up? What happens if you just kind of don't get anybody responding to your requests to participate? What I do think you could do is take another look at the sampling methods that Cresswell describes. One is the snowballing one. Like if there's somebody that you know in the community who has opinions about Shawnee State and what they and they're vocal about it, maybe you get them to kind of identify other people who have talked about Shawnee State. I just think being a little bit more specific there, and also kind of anticipating that there might be problems recruiting people. Let's head that off at the pass and maybe look to Cresswell for a few other ideas about how you might recruit folks. Okay, going through, all this looks pretty strong here. In addition to the identifying materials and making sure that they're going to be stored and then disposed of at some point, I also think you need to mention where your IRB, where your informed consent forms, the signed informed consent forms that has the identifying information. How are you going to store that? You can say that you're going to store it in my office. It'll be there for 2 or 3 years, maybe 2 years at the tops, and they'll be destroyed at the end of that time. I think that kind of information, that's what would actually tie a participant, like if they were able to get access to your data files, they could actually tie it to an identity if they also had the informed consent form. So you need to explain where those are going to be. You also need to explain how you're going to record your interviews, or if you will record them, what are you going to do with those files? Download them to a password protected computer. You just need some more specifics here. This is one of those things where it's not really an option. We definitely need more information here about how you're going to minimize the risk of a privacy breach. Okay. I do think this is an option. I do think in 7A, later on, you talk about giving multiple or administering multiple surveys, not surveys, but administering multiple interviews. I think that idea of reiterative or continual consent is particularly relevant here. So Cresswell mentions that we do consent at the beginning of a study. I think also checking in maybe once or twice, depending on how many times you're surveying people, checking in with them to make sure that they still provide their consent. I think that's important as well. I'm really glad to see that you even, you went ahead and got the consent form together. So man, you're rolling. Like this is good. Like that means that once we hear back from IRB, we can hit the ground running right after break, which I think is awesome. So I'm really proud of your work here, Jack. Good job. Going back to the recruitment idea and who it is you're trying to get in your study, you're just kind of doing this average citizen of Portsmouth thing, and I'd urge you to think a little bit more strategically here. Maybe you are looking for people that have clear opinions about Shawnee State and its place in the community. Maybe you're going to talk to people that are senior citizens who have maybe a historical long view. Man, you could even go to the Golden Bears. I know that sounds silly, but the Golden Bears, that's a senior citizen group that meets inside the activity center here at Shawnee State. They're over in the gym, and they got their own lounge, and you could just say, hey, I'm here to interview a few folks about what they think about Shawnee State. Man, that could be kind of cool because they got that historical long view. Anyhow, what I'm trying to get at, we need to be a little bit more strategic here. Just kind of saying any citizen of Portsmouth, you think that might be kind of opening things up and making things easier. It really doesn't, because if you just kind of put up posters and say, hey, participate, folks ain't going to do that. And I think I remember your survey project from Writing Center Pedagogy, that kind of became an issue at the end. So like, let's head that off here. Don't have to do golden bears, don't have to do a particular, any particular group that I've mentioned, but I do think that finding a particular specific kind of person that you're looking for, that needs to be articulated. Little grammatical stuff here, ain't that big a deal. You might need, and I'm checking on this now and I'll get back to you, but we might need our interview questions and our interview protocols before we go to IRB, before we send in the application. So stay tuned about that. I might know something by the time we meet at 2:20 on Monday, but we might have to do that. I'm not certain, but stay tuned on that. I do think naming your research study, it's as a qualitative research project using a phenomenological design. I think that that's the way to go. Phenomenological designs, the folks that are on IRB, some might know about that. Most won't. I will. I think the psychologists will know about it, but the other folks won't, especially the folks over in CPS. They probably won't know about that. So, but they will know qualitative. So I'd say call it a qualitative research study or qualitative study implementing a phenomenological design. I would also say in this section, refer to Cresswell. That's where we're getting all this information from. So cite that dude, because that's where your method's coming from. And then, like, you don't mention anything about coding or theming or anything like that. And I think that needs to get mentioned here in this section as well. So overall, and that is something that I definitely think does need to happen. It's not one of those discretionary things. We need to be more specific about our analysis methods and the overall methodology for the project. But I just want to say, like, great job. Like, this is a really strong draft, and it's really close to being ready. So I'm looking forward to seeing where this goes. So bring your questions about this, bring your questions about the lit review, and let's get you going into break with a really strong start. Good job, Jack. Talk to you soon.